Hello, welcome back to Farmer's Wife Homestead. I'm Stacey. Today we are going to make crumpets. It's that time of the year where the evenings are starting to get cooler and we're still having the balmy warm days, and I don't know, but it used to be crumpets were only available sort of autumn and winter. Of course you can get them all year round, but I've always wanted to try making them myself. So this week I trialled a recipe, and the recipe I found online was from a site called Recipe Tin Eats, and the recipe has actually come from an English recipe released by a place called Warburton's, and they're the largest commercial maker of crumpets. Well, I figured UK crumpets, can't go wrong with this recipe, and I tried it and it was so simple, easy. I thought it would be quite complicated, but I promise you it's not. So the recipe said that it makes 6 servings. I ended up getting about 8 crumpets. What I used was my canning rings. You could use any other kind of shape. I've got, hang on, I don't have any plain cookie cutters. This one's got a fluted edge, so I even use this one, and it's got quite a thick width, so it made quite a big thick crumpet, which was cool. But yeah, I use these rings. Apparently you can just free make circles, so you don't need to have something like this, and you don't need any special equipment, so you can just pour and make a little round yourself if that's what you want to do. But I've got these rings, I tried these rings and they worked perfectly. And the only other thing that I used was I got a little skewer. You could use a metal one, a tip of a knife, whatever, and I had so much fun standing here and poking the little holes and making the holes which are so, part of eating a crumpet. Now, of course, I put some butter on the top after I toasted it, and you could also use golden syrup. Hang on. If you've been following me for a while, you would have seen my golden syrup recipe, so you can make your own golden syrup at home. So I will link that in either up here and at the end of video. It's super simple, and as you can see, I need to make some more. So yeah, I have never been a fan of golden syrup on crumpets, but if you are, that's the way to do it. So yeah, very limited ingredients. I will try and figure out how much it costs compared to buying them, and I will put it here somewhere. I'll let you in on a little secret. On my laptop, my 5 and my 6 don't use. Doesn't work. I've tried fixing it. I don't know how to fix it. So yeah, it's quite a problem when I'm trying to, type out things. Anyway, let's get on to the first part, which is to make up sort of like a little bit of a mix, and then you've got to beat it for a while. Now I'm going to use my Kenwood. You can use a hand mixer. If you don't have one, you can use a whisk. It's just going to take a little bit longer because you've got to beat it for 2 minutes. Alright, so I'm going to get my equipment ready and I'll be right back. Can you believe it? This is my 100th video, so that's a cool milestone to hit. And thanks to all the new subscribers lately. That last video that I did was really popular, and it's really cool to see so many new faces here. Well, not that I get to see your face. Right, going to use the balloon whisk. Okay, so I'm going to bring you over. Okay, so I'm going to double this recipe, and I will link the recipe in the description also. So the first part we're going to do is place flour, water, salt in a bowl and whisk for 2 minutes, or electric beater on speed 5. So I'm going to, as I said, double it. because I want to freeze some. So that's 400 mils of warm water and plus 2 tablespoons. And we need 2 cups of flour. And the salt, so we need a teaspoon of salt. These were so delicious. I literally will never buy them again. They tasted far, far better. Right, so I'll whisk this. Right, I've only been whisking this for about 20 seconds and I can see that that is a little bit too thick. So I'm going to add a tablespoon of extra warm water. What I did with the recipe earlier on in the week as well. You want to stop it halfway through the beating and just scrape down the sides as well so that you don't have any clumps of flour. Now that consistency is a lot better. You don't want it too thick. Yes, there's some lumps in there, but that should come out with a bit more beating. Okay, so you see that consistency? That's what you're wanting. It's kind of like paint, really. Right, in the meantime, I grabbed myself a little ramekin and I warmed it up by just putting some hot water in it and then draining it out. And I've put my 2 tablespoons of warm water in here, and now I'm going to grab some yeast. So I buy it in a big brick. I think it's 500 grams. And then I pop it all into a jar and stick it in the fridge. You can keep it in the freezer, like I keep my blocks in the freezer, and they last for years and years and years. You can use them after the use by date, no problem. So anyway, I've just grabbed that and I'm going to put 2 teaspoons into that 2 tablespoons of mix. And just give it a stir, and you're just going to bloom that yeast and hydrate it. It seems really weird because it's quite like you've got a big clump, but just keep mixing and eventually it'll all dissipate. So you just keep stirring until all the lumps are gone. Now it's not going to look like the same sort of bloom if you're making a loaf of bread. And to be honest, when I first made it I thought, oh, I've killed my yeast, it's not going to rise, and it was perfect. Okay, now that mixture's just been sitting there for a while. Now we're just going to pour the yeast mixture in. Make sure I get it all out. And we need, because I'm doubling the recipe, I need 1 tablespoon of sugar. And baking powder, 1 teaspoon, so I need 2 teaspoons of baking powder. And the baking powder is what gives it the bubbles. Okay, now we're going to whisk this for another 30 seconds. Again, I'm going to scrape it down. This is actually thinned out a little bit, so I'm just going to add a tablespoon of flour. Don't be afraid to play around with the recipe. A tablespoon here and there is not going to harm it. So I'm going to whisk it again. Alright. This because, you know, you added the yeast, it thinned it down a bit. So yeah, I just added a little bit more flour back to the mixture to get it to about paint consistency. Right, now I'm just going to cover this and I'm just going to set it aside in a warm spot for 45 minutes. And it's not going to rise like a dough, it's just going to sort of bubble up a bit more, so you're not expecting it to look like a dough at all. Alright, so I'll be back in 45 minutes. The other piece of equipment that you're going to need is either an electric frying pan, a frying pan. I'm using my stainless steel. I've got beautiful cast iron skillets as well, but I'm going to use the stainless steel today. And yeah, as I said, you could also use an electric frying pan. I'm going to get some softened butter out so that I can grease these rings, and actually I might get a couple more rings so I can do a few at a time. So it's been 45 minutes. So of course you could go off and do some jobs like I did. And now it might be easier to just bring the camera down. That's what it's going to look like. Sort of foamy. So that's great. That's exactly what you want. Okay, so if you're new here, one thing that I do on my channel is that so I don't edit out stuff that goes wrong. So if something goes wrong, then I usually like to try and troubleshoot with you guys so that if you encounter the issues, then you can, you know, see other ways that you can rectify problems. So with stainless steel, as you may or may not know, it can be quite a hassle to work with, and things can stick. And when I first did my first batch during the week, it did stick to the pan. It didn't ruin the actual outcome, but what I learned for that was that I needed to just lightly grease the area where the crumpet was going to go down instead of just doing the rings. So yeah, so we'll see what the first batch is like, and we'll go from there. So you don't want it very hot, okay, because if you do it very hot, you're going to burn the outside of the crumpet, and the middle's not going to cook. So these do take a little while, so you know, give yourself a good half an hour to 45 minutes depending on how many times you've timed the recipe, and it's quite therapeutic. Like I said, you can just stand there and pop some bubbles. So what I've done is I've put my stainless steel. The trick with stainless steel pans for them to not stick is to heat them up slowly. So I always turn it to a quarter. If I'm using it on, and I need to use it for full heat, I turn it for a quarter, let that heat, and then I turn another quarter, and then I turn another quarter, and then I go to high, and then usually that becomes non-stick. That's what I find to be helpful anyway. But as I said, with this recipe, you're not actually going to have it too high at all. So I'm turning my element to about half, but every oven is different. So just, you know, the first couple, until you get used to it, they may, you know, might not turn out. Now, I've got a butter bell. Do you guys know what a butter bell is? So it's this little ceramic dish, and then it's got this little bell here, and I put butter in it. And then in this, you've got a little bit, an inch of water and cold water. And yeah, you've always got soft butter, and it's good for in the summer months. So I've got a little paper towel that's going to be there for when I pop the bubbles, and I've got my butter bell here, and first thing I'm going to do is just get a little brush, and I'm just going to brush the rings quite generously. Now it doesn't matter if you, because I tested it out, doesn't matter if you fill them like that way with the lip down there, or this way with no lip. Okay, so it doesn't matter which way you do it, both work just as well. I prefer this way because you just lift the ring off. With this one, you've got to sort of like turn it over and then lift it off. I'm just going to butter the little bit where I'm going to put that ring, and I'll do it four times. And butter, that's going to go. I mean, if you've got teenagers could do this. Even younger than teenagers could do this. Right, I'm just going to get a ladle, and I'm just going to give this a little bit of a stir as well. You just want enough in there to cover the bottom and sort of have it come almost up to that ring. They will rise slightly. Oops. Just like I said, play around with your heat. So I think this could need to go up a little bit. And if I need to, I can turn it down again, because I'm not getting any bubbling from the butter yet. So we'll just leave it like this. Don't poke the holes at the moment. You want to wait until it sort of like starts to dry up. As I said, it will take a little bit. With all those bubbles. And see, the butter's just starting to sizzle a little bit. You'll also need one of these to flip them, and I've got a cooling rack to the side as well. See all the bubbles? So I'll come back when I see a little bit more action, but yeah, just play around with your stove. Don't be afraid, as I said, to just turn it up and then turn it back down, or take it off the heat if you think it's too hot, and then turn it down and bring it back. You know, see how it's risen to the top? So this one I overfilled it a little bit, but it should still come away. But these can take about 4 to 5 minutes. And I find a pair of tongs help to take the rings off. As you can see, I've put too much mixture in. These are more active than the ones that I made during the week. So the next lot I'm going to put a little less in there. You can start poking some of the bubbles if you want. Now see how they're starting to, the bubbles are starting to pop themselves. Can you see how this one's starting to dry out? See, it's not as wet. This is the point that we want to get them to. These ones are going to take longer because I've overfilled them. But this one's a lot better. It's overfilled just a tiny bit there. But see how this part is drying out? That's great. That's what you want. And this is the time that you actually can start poking bubbles. I'm going to bring my pan over, concentrate on this one for a little bit. See, while it's still quite wet, the bubbles, they don't really pop the same. So this is almost dried out this side, and this side's getting there. Wonder if I can take the ring off. There we go. Hopefully I've put enough butter on the bottom. Yep. You see that? And then you're just going to, you want it pretty much dry. See, I'm touching, and that the top then will still have the bubbles. So just leave that. See, these are starting to dry out now, so we can start poking some holes. And see where this could be so much fun. And I've turned it to sort of halfway between half on my element. Right, so these are dry enough. Problem is that, actually this one will be ready. Perfect. I think these are going to be a bit problematic to take off because of the, oh no, that's okay. I am going to have to clean them though. It's almost dry. You really only want to do the other side for, you know, about 15 seconds. Now, as that stainless steel pan heats up, it's going to need to be turned down because that's the first batch. It's like pancakes. You know, your first batch of pancakes, they hardly ever turn out. So I'm going to now turn this down even more because I know that this is going to be too hot now. So I've turned that down, and I might just wipe this out a little bit for the next batch. Right, I'm just going to clean these rings and then I'll be right back with you. Would you look at that? You see the holes? How awesome is that? So soft. They're not the supermarket ones. My husband brought some home when he went to the supermarket a couple of weeks ago, and they were so dry, so dry. These are not dry. So that's the first four, and as I said, I showed you how to troubleshoot the problems. So I'm now going to grease these again. Normally you don't have to wash in between. I'm just going to grease the bottom, and I'm not going to overfill these ones, which means I'll probably have a little bit less mixture now that I overfilled. That's okay. Yeah, so I'm at the first quarter on my element, and that butter's still sizzling away nicely, so I think that's going to be, that's perfect for my element anyway. Right, next batch. You just want to make sure that the ring actually gets filled too, not like filled like around the perimeter. That one's going to overflow, I can see, but anyway. Okay, right, carry on with this lot. By the way, you don't actually have to poke the holes. I actually think I like them when they're slightly overfilled. It made a much bigger crumpet. Much better. If you don't wait until this is dried, then it sort of has a crust and it doesn't give you the top holy. Perfect. Yeah, see, that's what happens when you see how you don't see the holes as much on the top. You just get far more holes if you do poke them at this stage. I filled these ones up a bit more because the second batch I felt didn't have enough. It doesn't matter. I've just done the pricings on these and I cannot believe it's incredible. So I just went away and left them for a little bit while they did their thing. Just don't be in a rush to cook them too fast. So far I've got 8, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, and I've got a little bit left to make another batch. Probably only about 3 more, I would imagine. Yeah, see, that's much better. I like that size. Just really don't rush the stage. It's nice, low, slow heat. Alrighty, I've sat there and tried to work out the pricing of this, and I tell you what, my brain is like fried. So I was able to work out some of it. The rest I'm just going to tell you what it was, and somebody who's got a better brain than mine can work it out and put it in the comments would be really cool. So I was blown away actually. So 6 crumpets at Woolworths today cost $4.40. So that is 73 cents per crumpet. Now I did the workings out for one recipe. So like 1 cup of flour is 150 grams. So that's 24 cents for 1 cup of flour. Water, well, water, salt, white sugar. So the white sugar used 7 grams, and for 2 kilos of sugar, for 1 kilo of sugar it's $2 or 20 cents for 100 grams. So 7 grams. So I think that equates to around, well, I rounded it up to 10 grams. That would be 2 cents. So as you can see, it's very minimal. Baking powder, so that was $2.30 for 125 grams, and I used 5 grams. So work that one out. Yeast, I used 3 grams of yeast, and the cost was $6 for 150 grams. So as you can see, the rest of the ingredients are extremely minimal. So I would say that you'd be able to make this for probably about 30 to 35 cents per batch, and you get 8 per batch. So you can see that is incredible. It is such a huge saving, huge massive saving. Oh my gosh, these smell and look so good. Now they're all cooled down now. There's the bottom part. Super important to have that temp down low. Smell beautiful. They are so light and fluffy. Should we toast one up? Yeah, we'll toast one up. I'm going to toast this one up. So these are the flatter ones compared to those bigger ones. So if you wanted to make them go further, make them a bit flatter and you'll get more. So I got 15. So yeah, if you just half fill them, you'd get more. And I'm going to keep some out for breakfast tomorrow, and then I'm going to get a tray, just like one of my silicone trays. It's got a little bit of butter on at the moment, and then I'm going to pop them on there like that, and then I'm going to pop this into the freezer and flash freeze them. Okay, so once they're hard, no, don't leave them in there for days on end. So once they're hard enough, then you can pop them into silicone silicone bags or Ziploc bags, anything like that, and because you flash froze them, you can just pull out as many as you want and chuck them straight in the toaster like that from frozen. Whereas if you buy the packet, you chuck that in the freezer, you've got to thaw the whole heap because they become one big block wedge. Yeah, so make up a double, triple, quadruple batch, and just, you know, like, you can come and go from it because it's at such a low heat. I went off and did things and then I came back, and then yeah, do that once a week or once a fortnight, whatever. And honestly, please guys, please give it a go, and come back to the comments and let me know that you've given it a go. Now these prices that I worked out, they're all for at Woolworths, and if you buy in bulk like I do, it's even cheaper. Toasted it a little bit longer than what I wanted while I was rambling on about yeast. Yum. So hot. Now it's all toasty as well. Right. Wow. Trust me on this one. You will never buy store-bought again. So easy. So much tastier. I don't think the camera can do it justice. Anyway, thank you for joining me on today's video. Thank you all so much for the love and the comments and everything else from the last video, and I really hope you enjoyed this video, and I will I will see you on the next one. Alright, take care. Bye for now.